In the quiet town of Fairlawn, New Jersey, a shadow fell on September 25, 1965. A shadow that would linger for nearly 60 years. That day, 18-year-old Alys Jean, a bright and promising nursing student, was found murdered in her family's home. The community was shocked, and a major investigation was launched. Detectives worked tirelessly, chasing every lead, but the trail eventually went cold. The case, filled with unanswered questions, was put away, gathering dust. For decades, the memory of Alys and the mystery of her death remained a painful wound for her family and friends. Who could have committed such a terrible act? The answer seemed lost to time. For over half a century, Alys's case was a ghost story, a local tragedy without an ending. But in the spring of 2021, a single phone call changed everything. A former classmate of Alys reached out to the Fairlawn police with a tip, a small piece of information held for decades. This call landed on the desk of Detective Brian Ripke. Instead of dismissing it as just another old memory, Detective Ripke saw an opportunity, a flicker of light in a long, dark tunnel. He decided to reopen the case. Pulling the original files, he and his colleague, Sergeant Eric, began to meticulously go through every report, every interview, every piece of evidence from 1965. They were looking for something, anything that investigators might have missed with the limited technology of the time. The journey back into the past had officially begun, driven by a renewed hope that justice for Alys was still possible. The detectives' renewed investigation led them to a name already well known in the annals of New Jersey: crime, Richard Cottingham. By 2021, Cottingham was an old man, imprisoned since the early 1980s and serving multiple life sentences for a string of horrific crimes. He was a convicted serial offender, but was he connected to Alys Eberhardt's case? There was no physical evidence linking him, only faint whispers and circumstantial threads from the past. Detectives Ripke and Alys knew that if Cottingham was involved, the only way to prove it would be to get a confession. This task seemed almost impossible. Why would a man already destined to die in prison admit to another crime committed nearly 60 years ago? But they were determined to try. The detectives began a series of visits to Southwood State Prison. Their strategy wasn't one of aggressive interrogation. Instead, they focused on building a rapport with Cottingham. They visited him again and again, month after month, year after year. They talked about his life, his past, anything and everything. It was a slow, painstaking process of building trust with a man who had spent a lifetime deceiving others. They weren't just police officers. They became familiar faces, patient listeners. This psychological game of chess required immense patience and skill. They were planting seeds, hoping that over time, Cottingham might feel comfortable enough to finally unburden himself of secrets he had carried for a lifetime. The detectives were betting on the power of human connection, even with a hardened criminal, to unlock the truth. As the years passed, the detectives continued their visits, a quiet, persistent effort happening behind the scenes. Then, in late 2025, another crucial piece of the puzzle fell into place. An investigative historian named Peter Vransky, who had been studying Cottingham's cases, contacted the authorities. He had information that Cottingham's health was failing, and more importantly, that he might be willing to talk about other crimes he had committed. Vransky believed Cottingham was looking to clear his conscience before the end. This was the opening the detectives had been working towards for years. They knew the window of opportunity was closing. It was now or never. Armed with this new information, detectives Ripke and Alys intensified their interviews. Throughout November and December of 2025, they met with Cottingham several more times. The atmosphere in the prison interview room was tense. They carefully guided the conversation back to that autumn day in 1965, to Fairlawn, to Alys Jean Eberhardt. They presented him with the facts of the case, jogging his memory and showing him that they knew more than he might have thought. They appealed to whatever sense of finality he might be seeking. The years of building rapport had paid off. Cottingham, now frail and facing his own mortality, began to talk. Then, on December 22, 2025, the breakthrough finally came. In a quiet, measured voice, Richard Cottingham gave a full verbal confession. He recounted the details of what happened to Alys Jean Eberhardt, admitting his responsibility for her death. The detectives listened, capturing the words that would finally close a 60-year-old case. To solidify the confession, they asked him to write it down. Cottingham agreed and put pen to paper, creating a written statement that officially acknowledged his guilt. The secret he had held for a lifetime was finally out. For the investigators, it was a moment of profound, somber victory. The truth, buried for so long, had finally been unearthed. With the confession secured, the final steps were procedural but significant. The Fairlawn police worked with the Bergen County Prosecutor's Office and the New Jersey State Police. Given that Cottingham was already serving multiple life sentences and would never be free again, the decision was made not to press new charges. The primary goal was not further punishment, but closure. The confession itself was the justice the case needed. On January 6, 2026, the authorities made a public announcement. The 1965 murder of Alys Jean Eberhardt was officially solved and the case was closed. The news brought a wave of relief and emotion to the community of Fairlawn. For Alys's surviving family and friends, the news was bittersweet. After 60 years of uncertainty, of not knowing who was responsible or why it happened, they finally had an answer. The resolution couldn't bring Alys back, but it brought an end to the haunting mystery. It allowed her to be remembered not just as the victim of an unsolved crime, but as the vibrant young woman she was. A nursing student with a future full of promise, a daughter, a sister, a friend. The successful resolution affirmed that her life mattered and that she was never forgotten by law enforcement or her community. The solving of Alys Eberhardt's murder is a powerful testament to the value of persistence in police work. It shows that no case is ever truly cold as long as someone is willing to look again. It highlights the incredible dedication of detectives like Ripkema and Elushwich, who invested years of their lives into a case many had written off. Their innovative approach, focusing on building rapport and conducting patient, long-term interviews, proved to be the key. This story is a reminder that even after decades have passed, truth can be found, and a measure of justice and peace can be delivered. It gives hope to other families who are still waiting for answers, proving that with dedication and a refusal to give up, the shadows of the past can finally be brought into the light.